Welcome to Calabash TV and to the reality show for yet another week, and we're happy to have with us in studio, as usual, Ambrose, Adolph, welcome. Hello. And also Michael Flood. Welcome to the reality show here on Calabash TV. And I was trying to see if we can get a different topic to start with, but when I listen to the news, it's more of the same. But yes, we do have something different we can start with, and I think just before the show we are discussing a little bit of jazz. It's Jazz Week. Instead of by the time this program goes out, jazz will be over, and so we would have had Jazz 2018. Now, obviously, Michael, from all experiences, and Ambrose, it is a scaled down jazz. It's a jazz with a difference for sure. It's not a jazz that we knew in 1992 or 2002. Michael?
Oh, definitely not. And like I said earlier, in fact, like we were discussing, people have lost interest in the jazz that we knew 20 and 25 years ago. And as a result, to my mind, the jazz that we were having almost makes no sense. I believe over the last 10 to 15 years, the jazz event was used more or less as a PR for St. Lucia, and not necessarily to get people to come in or a profit making. And I believe, based on what I'm seeing this year, it is something that definitely needs to be revisited, because in fact I was just talking to somebody about an hour ago who said to me during the jazz week her business would do extremely well, and to her disappointment this year she have not even made $1,500. Mm-hmm. So it goes to show that the interest is not there, and something needs to be done either to re-examine what is happening, or to think of something else.
Ambrose, as a musician, I'm sure you were keenly following jazz, at least the people who were performing for jazz, and you too would have noticed the difference. In terms of, for you as an artist, what did the Jazz Festival mean?
Well, I mean, for me as an artist, it meant an opportunity to see some persons that maybe I had not seen before. Mm-hmm. I must confess, I didn't go to every jazz festival there has been, but I remember seeing George Benson. That was a good experience for me. I really enjoyed that. In truth, I always felt that St. Lucia missed out on a great opportunity when BET were partnering with St. Lucia to do the jazz festival, and I always thought it would have been wonderful if that opportunity was used to enable the development of local musicians. And I don't think no bright person at that time, when BET was actually partnering with St. Lucia with the Jazz Festival, I don't think they utilized BET to enable the development of local musicians. And so, in truth, it has become what it has become, because I really think, I don't know, I sense the purpose may have changed, or if there was really any real purpose apart from just looking to create a bit of economic activity every around May, when at that time the cruise ships are gone, and you're looking for a way to get people to come to the country, and if that was the main purpose of jazz, then in my opinion, this here is a result of it. Obviously, combine that with the changes that has been made to the jazz festival itself, where it has been cut down quite a bit, and it is seem to be more concentrated in the hotels, where obviously that doesn't help with the national involvement, and so I think that has enabled it to die even more.
Mm-hmm. So. I know there was a change to get more of the arts involved, even with this reconfigured jazz, and I suppose it's still a work in progress in terms of what we plan to do with jazz, because we don't have any definitive one on exactly where it's going to go. Are we phasing it out and replacing it with something else, or are we going to have a kind of a hybrid festival and so on? But we did not have, even this year, Michael, a lot of the arts involved, like we used to have a couple of years ago with jazz and arts.
Well, the only thing I find this year, I believe there are more locals participating in jazz, and again, like I said, I mean, when you're going to offer, an international artist almost $1 million to come perform, and you have no guarantee that you're going to recoup that money, it says that we need to look at what we're doing differently. And like I said, I believe what we can do now is to take the trend that they took this year, is to have a program, some activity where we showcase our local talents. Like in Dominica have the Creole Festival. Okay, let us fashion whatever we're doing, around something like that, where we could showcase what we have in St. Lucia, and I believe that may very well go a long way for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I was going to say, I mean, I don't know if I would agree that there are more locals being utilized, because simply I think for the mere fact that we have less shows, there are a lot less shows, so I think there are a lot less locals involved in the jazz festival. What I would say to the persons who are giving the money, Mr. Thomas Leo is a brilliant man. He has great ability. I think he should be given the chance to really spread and show that it basically becomes like his baby. Because the truth is, I don't know if he's restricted in any way, and so maybe that is why you find a situation where all the hotels are the ones basically getting the jazz festival. But I look upon him as a gentleman that I have been involved with, and I know that he is quite brilliant at that sort of thing. So they really should utilize him more.
but for a jazz, if you're looking at a pure jazz festival, I think the hotels would be the best venue, because St. Lucians are going to go to Marshall Grounds or anywhere to listen to jazz. And the purists, the people who like jazz, will go to a hotel venue to listen to jazz, because jazz is normally a smaller crowd, a smaller audience. The reason why we had start bringing in other artists is because we wanted to broaden the appeal. But if the intention is to go to a strictly jazz, pure jazz thing, there has to be a small venue.
That's true.
So in terms of that. But the other thing I wanted to look at is whether we want, and I think both of you mentioned showcase, whether we want a showcase. Okay, when the jazz was initially conceptualized, it was a marketing tool. There was a dull period when you wanted people to come to St. Lucia, let St. Lucia get known, and I think it did that because we got out of the press. We had, like you said, the BTs and so on. It was good to see St. Lucia on BT, and the other islands realized you're doing something right, and they started to follow as well. But I think what we need to discuss, and even at this point where we are at this juncture, is whether we're still looking for a kind of a showcase, a marketing tool for St. Lucia, or something that incorporates a developmental aspect to it. The reason why I'm asking is because when you look at 25 years of jazz, 25 years ago, our main jazz exports, the brands that we had, Bohingson and Luther Francois, and you can add Barbara Kelly to that in terms of jazz. You can, in the music business, you can let me know who I'm missing.
Yes. Jab Duplessis.
And Jab Duplessis. 25 years later, we still have the same people. So that means we didn't, over 25 years, generate a new set of jazz artists who we can export. I know there's guys like Zach Popo who plays the guitar, and there are other talented young guys, but in terms of being export products that they can go and perform in other jazz festivals, or even be headlining our jazz here. And so my thinking was that we didn't have the developmental component to it. We had a showcase. I think we had mastered stage management and those things. Arthur Tisson did extremely well. He made a huge investment and so on, and it paid off for him. But I want you all to discuss that in terms of, to me, the developmental part. We missed out something on that. We'll probably start with you, Michael.
Well, like I said earlier, and you just reiterated, the world has lost interest in jazz. Okay, like you rightfully said, the jazz artists we have for the last 25 years, we still have the same. We have no new person who have evolved into the jazz festival, but yet we have, let's say for instance, the Denver segment. They're doing well locally. They're doing well internationally. And I believe it is time to harness these new talents. And if we cannot do it in a jazz form, because this is really not jazz, but do it in a form that we can showcase what we have in St. Lucia. And I believe it will be followed, because the Dominica Creole Festival is always well attended. It's Creole.
But are they going on the same road, and Ambrose, are they going on the same road with us, that they're doing the festival, but are we seeing new bouillon bands coming on in Dominica? And so we know we still have the same, and there are a couple of bands coming on, but export to say like these bands are touring and doing things.
Well, in truth, I will say, I think, well, being a musician, I can give a personal view on that. Having looked at jazz over the last many years, jazz festival, I think we have a lot of square pegs in round holes. I have always thought so, and I'm not necessarily referencing the persons who are presently running the festival. But I've always said that you need to have persons who are innovative, who have a vision, and you can get economic activity and at the same time enable development of the local art forms. You can do the two, and you can actually benefit from it. Like I said earlier, a great opportunity was missed through our connection with BT. Because really and truly, I think if there were persons who were really interested in musicians at the time when that partnership was there, they would have sought ways by which they can enable local musicians to get opportunity to
Well,
partake.
Boo did exploit a few of those.
Yes, he did, but then again, it's Boo. I mean, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not referencing Boo in himself because Boo is like an icon in his own self. I'm making reference to the development of young musicians, young singers. Give them opportunities. Maybe not necessarily to get onto a stage right away, but who knows? Maybe get an opportunity to get a record deal. Now, and Michael was also saying that jazz is dead. I don't believe jazz is dead. I have been listening to jazz is very alive in the UK. I know you said earlier that there's the town in the USA.
The music is very alive, but the patrons, people have lost interest.
No. What's happening in jazz, in real jazz world is it is changing.
It's changing for sure.
It's changing, and so what's happening? Like Soweto Kinch, I make reference to Soweto Kinch. A lot of people who follow the jazz festival are young people. If they were to hear, I have been, for years I've been calling and recommending bring Soweto Kinch to St. Lucia for St. Lucia Jazz, because Soweto Kinch is very modern. He's doing hip hop jazz, and young people are interested in hip hop, but he infuses jazz. He's a great saxophonist. So the truth is, what needs to happen is, I think, apart from looking for these really strict jazz musicians to say that you're having a jazz festival, it's about time that there's more experimentation with modern forms of jazz, and I think that's probably where we are losing out to some degree.
Right, no, and I agree. But in that case, shouldn't we? When you talk about the development and so on, we don't have the corresponding investment in music programs in schools. The St. Lucia School of Music, which is doing a fantastic job, needs resources badly. Shouldn't we now, if we're cutting down on jazz, redirect some of that jazz money to the School of Music?
Yes. Not just the School of Music, the St. Lucia National Orchestra also.
Exactly, which is doing an excellent job.
That's right.
Pearl is an excellent talent.
That's right.
And people like Pearl in communities should be able to get some of that resource.
Yes.
And also, we mentioned the Dennery segment, that I'm sure there's no organized, structured music program in schools in Dennery. If there's that natural talent, then automatically give them the resources to be able to have a very solid music program in a school in Dennery, to be able to, so the next generation of Dennery guys will be at least be able to read music, do something.
Which brings us back to my point. I believe if more attention is paid to our local talents, of course, what will happen is you will find these very organizations you're talking about emerge. These very new talents, they will emerge, because I'll tell you something. St. Lucian artists, they are of the opinion that, I'm not good enough to be on a jazz stage, and as a result, they will not invest into new things. New groups will not necessarily push themselves to be selected, because they know, look, I'm not going anywhere. But if they know for a fact that the attention has been paid to local talents, you will find more involvement. You will find more groups emerging, and more people paying attention to the development of the artism in this country.
And I'll come to you, Ambrose. Let me take this opportunity to again, and it came up kind of accidentally, but to draw attention to somebody like Pearl Tench, who is, I followed her from the School of Music to her program in the communities in Marsh, across St. Lucia. People like that shouldn't be struggling to be able to get instruments, to be able to even get paid to teach young people to learn music. Because every child has to teach music. I mean, we all understand what music does for your education, development, and so on. The opportunity gives you as a person to be able to perform, make money off your art and so on, to create, to be, to get into the music business and so on. And the different aspects of the music business. And to me, and that's why I want to see the real development in the jazz festival and so on, that if you give Pearl, for example, a certain amount of money to create a production for me that we want to premiere on Jazz Stage 2019, then she has a year. She gets money, she has a year to be able to get the kids together, train them and say, listen, we can buy instruments, we can, and then, so when 2019 comes around, we can sell the community orchestra as one of the features of the jazz festival. So we want to come and see over 1 year's period what exactly Pearl has been able to come up with. And to me, that's the thinking, my thinking in terms of invest and then put on a showcase featuring something new from local talent. And I had to mention Pearl because I know she struggles quite a lot, and she is an extremely talented cellist and violinist and musician herself. And to me, somebody like Pearl should not be struggling to get money when whatever she's doing is for St. Lucia. But I digress with Pearl. But we're talking about the jazz festival which we're having, and so we need to have that discussion. Now, you mentioned about the vision. Who is supposed to come up with that vision?
Well, I think you need the musicians involved. That's for sure. I have issue with a lot of musicians in St. Lucia. As a musician, as a matter of fact, people don't understand. I remember in 1994, I was one of the first cabaret. I'm talking about proper international standard cabaret. I used to do it. As a matter of fact, it was done just for the Sandals Resorts. It was done just for them. I did not perform. I did 1 2 shows other places, but I made a decision. They were paying me good money, so I made a decision that I would perform only for them. And so much so, I mean, I remember meeting Mr. Butch Stewart and Mr. Kozak, who now I think has died. And actually, they wanted me to become one of Sandals' main Caribbean, like their brand. They wanted me to work for the whole region. I mean, obviously I went to England, got involved in the West End because this was my dream, so I really wanted to go to the West End. A lot of people don't know in St. Lucia that I am a West End performer. I used to do, and I've done every major theatre in the UK. People don't know that. But I say to people, I would rather go and sell juice in the street and make a minimal amount of money than actually prostitute myself and go and perform at a hotel where I would, at the end of the night, after having performed and given the best of what I have acquired in life through the gift of God and experience, and get 100 EC dollars for it. Musicians do this every day. They cannot organize themselves. They cannot come and form a union. They cannot. They are terrible. So the musicians should just as much be blamed. I'm not going to blame government for the faults of musicians. Musicians have not learned to this day to organize themselves, and the ones who are there, who are real connected, and I'm talking about the more mature musicians, they should be doing more to enable the coming together. Because what would happen if you have a body that has some kind of a vision, then that body can go to government and say, this is what we need, and enable the development. I think governments are very happy when organizations are disorganized, because it means that if you're disorganized, that you're not going to put much pressure on them, because if one person comes and say, oh, we want this, they can ignore you. But just imagine if 600 musicians come together and say, this is what we need, then right away you have a great place where you can begin to bargain. And I think, so in terms of the vision, I think the musicians, they need to get it going. I think we need musicians to show that they are better organized and that they are together. And if they can show that they are together, then what will happen is that other persons now will begin to see them and begin to respect them. Because just imagine if every musician who's working at a hotel presently, I mean, in 1994, I used to earn $150 a night in a hotel. You're telling me in the year 2018, right? In the year 2018, the musicians have not even earning $100 a night. Something is wrong here.
Yeah. Now you're right, and we've been preaching on this program in terms of people need to do things for themselves as well. I know everybody wants the government to do stuff, but if you organize and you get things going, and like I keep saying, using the Prime Minister's same 5 to stay alive, that if you come with your 5 for you to stay alive and tell the Prime Minister this is what we intend to do for us to stay alive as an industry, that the Prime Minister and the government is not much of a choice but to do that. And I know Michael, music is probably not your
definitely not
your area, but we started with the jazz thing and so on. But we wanted to have that discussion in light of the jazz that's going on. That we need to have that discussion on. And you're right about the organization. I mean, Calypsonians don't even own Calypso. It's been organized by somebody else for them, which is a little, so the fraternity itself needs to get organized. I need to understand that too. And it's not just a matter of putting pressure, just getting yourself organized to seize opportunities and to make a case. If you organize and you say, we've researched this and this is what we think, then you can make a case. But if everybody's pulling in all kinds of directions, then we're not going anywhere. We'll take a break. We'll come back in just a little while, continue along the same vein of entertainment. In fact, of what's been happening globally. So we'll be back shortly after this short break.
This is The Reality Show on Calabash TV. You are watching The Reality Show, streaming live on stluciafirst.com.
Welcome back to The Reality Show here on Calabash TV, and we're continuing to focus on events that have happened over the past week or so And I'm sure this, along the lines of entertainment, I'm sure most of you saw on television the Kentucky Derby, which was won by, by a horse called Justify, owned by somebody we start to know very well now. I think he's one of the co-owners of Justify, and the Prime Minister was up there as well. And when I saw it, I'm saying, okay, well, I know the Prime Minister was very instrumental in getting jazz off the ground in St. Lucia, and whether the horse racing could be a replacement for jazz, because it's another entertainment activity. It's one, almost the goals are similar in terms of visibility for St. Lucia, well, job creation and so on. Ambrose, can we see horse racing as probably another jazz?
Well, we have, I mean, if I don't see it at all. I mean, the Racino...
It's big, based on what you saw in Kentucky.
Well, yeah, but first of all, we don't have population for it. That's for certain. We don't have population for it. And the Racino that they're going to be creating, really and truly, I don't think the focus is really on locals.
But this one is for, from what I understand, is a media thing, just like cricket.
Yes.
We don't have a population for cricket, but we bring cricket and you sell for the rights and so on. And yeah,
well,
go ahead.
Well, put it this way, I don't personally feel that the idea of horse racing, I'm supportive of horse racing. As a matter of fact, I believe that Dr. Anthony, there was a period of time, annually there used to be a horse racing activity in View Fort. I know that's been going on for a while. The horses, persons like my friend Eugene would harp on about these things, but the thing, I'm not really into horses, but what I do know, when I think of the horses and the horse racing thing, I don't just look at it as a singular thing. I attach it to all the other things that are going to be attached to it in View Fort. Hence the reason why I am very skeptical, and I don't feel the Prime Minister is justified in what he's seeking to do in View Fort. That's for certain. I am not saying that I am not in support of horse racing, but I think the manner in which it is being done, or the Prime Minister is going about doing it, I think it is wrong. I think there needs to be more accountability. I think there needs to be respect for the law, and we have gone through that, and I know people are saying that it is not so, but the truth is there are many things that are out of place that needs to be put in place, and the Prime Minister is not going about it right.
Michael, I listened to some of what the Prime Minister said when he came back about the Kentucky Derby and so on, and he made mention that there were like 700 private jets there and 160,000 people in the stadium. I mean, which is all good. If it's one of the longest running sporting events in the world, obviously it's a huge event. But I wanted to find out, and I meant to call the Prime Minister's office to find out, but there was an opportunity there for Ministry of Tourism, the Tourist Board, for Invest St. Lucia. We can have 700 private jets. There's probably some business. I mean, there's entertainment people there, but business opportunities shouldn't, like the Invest St. Lucia people have been involved, the St. Lucia Tourist Board, even our vets, because if we're going to go into horse racing, at least they can learn a thing or two. But I think the Prime Minister was basically almost there solo.
No. Based on my understanding, there was an entourage. I don't think.
Oh, there was.
Yeah, I don't think it was him alone. But not having said that, I have a few difficulties with what I saw, and the pronouncements made by the Prime Minister. Whereas I think the Prime Minister is very much infused when it comes to getting that horse racing track going on in View Fort, and I have no faults with it. I see no faults about it. I believe it is investment for the country. I believe it will create jobs. It will be more visibility for this country. And like I've always said, I believe we need to take the politics off that thing in View Fort. Having said that, I do not think the Prime Minister should have been so much involved in what I saw on television. Yes, he was there in attendance as Prime Minister, but to attend the prize winning ceremony, the press conference, and all of that, the message it sends to me and to a lot of St. Lucians is that the Prime Minister will go at whatever ends he can to promote this horse racing track in St. Lucia, and it comes along that as if he has personal interest, not necessarily national interest, but he has personal interest, and I think this is sending a wrong signal to St. Lucians, and whereas, like I said, I have no qualms with him attending, but I think he should have cut short some of his appearances on. And again, even the pronouncement where he made, he saw over 700 jets. I mean, come on. There may have been, but to tell me you were able to watch and see, no, I would have said a few hundred jets, but I would not have used the figure 7, because 700 jets on an airstrip, that means that airstrip is jammed. Nothing could happen. So, you know, these things, people tend to raise an eyebrow when people hear these things and see these things. So I think the Prime Minister needs to cut back some of his pronouncements and participation in that whole horse racing thing.
I suppose Ambrose should be wary of his enthusiasm. And I can understand the Prime Minister needs to be enthusiastic about investment and investment opportunities. But in this case, you're getting the sense that there's probably a little too much for this one investor. I mean, it's true, it could be a game changer, but you want to see that same enthusiasm for all investors.
Is there a conflict of interest? That's another thing too, because the question needs to be asked. I mean, first of all, I said it when the Prime Minister won the elections in 2016, when he was invited to China by Teo King. Personally, I look at Teo King as an enemy of St. Lucia. I'm sorry.
That's pretty strong.
No, that is very strong. I look at him as an enemy of St. Lucia because I'll tell you why. He is coming to this country. This is our country. We are born and bred here. And he is coming to this country. He is basically, and yes, I know the Prime Minister is keen to do what he's doing. But to me, as an investor, you should be conscious of the mood of the people. And the reality is the people of the country are not too pleased about many of the things that they're seeing. And so you're telling me that you don't even show some degree of maybe concern. You're just plodding along like the people don't matter. And I'm being honest with you, Teo King is not one of my favorite people. I don't know who he is. I don't need anything he has. You see, the reality is because we all have to go through this life, and we all must eventually give up this life. And so Mr. King, with all his money, has not convinced me that he is worthy of being counted amongst us. Can I be honest with you? There are lots of Syrians in this country. And it's not people might think I don't like Chinese. There are lots of Syrians in this country. There are lots of Chinese in this country. And they are doing very well. I love them. There are lots of Indians who are doing good business. You know what they've done? They have just flown in their lot with us. So they are, as far as I'm concerned, they are one of us. And I'm very passionate about that. Teo King, when I look at him, I do not see him as being one of us. So for me,
he's early in the game. He's basically
yes, but
let me tell you here.
Let finish in a couple of seconds.
Yes. But the key thing for me is, so if I view him like this, and then there I see the Prime Minister who seems to be so concerned. He's pushing against all odds to make sure that Teo Kim's plans comes to fruition. And here's the interesting thing, and I said it, and I keep saying, I repeating it, and nobody seems to be taking me on about it. The DCA has not approved what is going on. No, Michael. An approval in principle is not an approval for you to do the work. They have given you an opportunity to do exploratory work in Vieux-Fort, not to build facilities. I heard the Prime Minister talking about building temporary facilities. How could you have temporary facilities where where you have been given no right to build anything as yet?
Yeah, Michael.
Bernard, it's a hypocrisy amongst us in St. Lucia. We were talking about permission to build in principle, approval in principle. Just before the last elections, we had a multi-million-dollar complex the last government started in Vieux-Fort with no approved plan. But the hypocrisy is because this one was done by the other government, it is not. Look, I've said it and I will say it again, okay? That DSH project, the negotiation started under the previous government. Okay, at the time, was he, or did you see him as part of St. Lucia? Or if it was approved and started under the St. Lucia Labour Party, would you have seen him as? Look, the gentleman is coming as an investor. I do not subscribe to everything that he has gotten. What we could do is agitate for a change. But when I hear people come and say, look, he should not do it and we should kick him out and blah, blah, look, kick him out. What do we replace it with? Who do we replace him with? Tell the powers that be, look, I think you gave him too much of a good deal, and we need to take this back, we need to cut down on that. But to say, you know, we need to stop that DSH project, we need to stop this, we need to stop that hypocrisy. Because in truth and in fact, it started under the previous administration. If we were to go down to, again, that's just to show you the hypocrisy of us in St. Lucia when it comes to politics. That disaster that took place in Praley. How was it started? We heard all sorts of things. Okay? It is there as a, even I remember when that project started, St. Lucians pleaded with the government, not at that site. Did they listen? They never listened. What happened? It is there as a derelict project. Nobody wants to invest in that. Okay? You want to talk about Theo Aking and look, what happened to Grindberg? What happened to Grindberg and our CBA? No. We could go on and on.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Successive governments do the same thing.
Yeah. So we're not correcting anything here because
that's my point.
You bring up something and there's always another story to counter it. Probably.
Yeah. Yes, but here's the thing, Bernard. How we've gone from approval in principle to Grindberg.
It's a fact. We have to.
It baffles me.
We have to because
Michael.
You keep harping on this one.
No, hold on, Michael. No, hold on, Michael. Whatever you're asking me not to forget are things that you yourself would agree you disagreed with. So if you disagreed with it, and this present government is doing exactly the same thing, why is it that I should therefore agree with it? And the reality is, and I've never been a political animal. I am passionate about St. Lucia. Let me tell you something. You see Kenny Anthony, or Philip J. Pierre, or Alan Chasney, or any one of them. These people don't matter to me as much as the future of this country. I don't have children in St. Lucia. Why am I putting everything that I possess and can become at risk to speak up for the people who are effectively the voiceless? I have nothing to gain from this. The reality is, politicians, we can talk about things that has gone before. I don't know. I was never into politics that deeply to have partaken in things like the Praley disaster you say there. And I remember my old history teacher, him telling me about the species, certain species, and when I heard that, I was not very vocal politically, but when I heard that, I was actually quite disgusted with the idea that the government would do such a thing. So if Michael was to ask me the question, if I was disgusted, I would tell him yes, I was disgusted.
Okay, so how do we deal with it now? Because, and that's what we're trying to get some. Obviously, they will never have some unity on those issues. So the DSH project will forever divide St. Lucia. All right, in terms of what is good for St. Lucia, what is not good for St. Lucia, and so on. And then people will harp on other projects that have been happening in the past. So, like Michael, how do we move forward to have a discussion where people are involved in a less
let me tell you
agitated discussion?
Let me tell you something. And this is a trend that has been going on in St. Lucia and started from 1996, 97. 2006, thereabout, started. A little before that. Is successive governments or political parties will oppose whatever the sitting government does. Tell me of one project, just one project, that this government has initiated in almost 2 years that have been supported by the opposition. Not one. Are you telling me that everything this present government does is wrong? Okay? And the same goes to this present government when they were in opposition. In as much as the UWP has never been that vocal of a party in opposition, because I could tell you I've been there, all right? But it is a situation where we've gotten to in St. Lucia where, by virtue of who we support, we will do whatever it takes to see that the government of the day don't shine. Why do you think over the last 3 elections we've had change of governments? Why? At whose expense? When you change a government after 1 term, it sets the country back 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And it's a fact. Proven fact.
But doesn't mean that this government doesn't need to be changed.
But hear me. You change this government. You bring in the Central Labour Party. They will do the same.
How do you know?
Didn't they do it in between?
But you keep going back to history, Michael.
No. Again.
How do you know?
You mean just 2 years ago was history?
Well, hold on.
2 years ago was history?
No, you said they didn't change. What is it that they didn't change?
Okay. Didn't they lose the elections in 2006? The Labour Party lost the election in 2006.
Yes.
Come 2011, what happened? They won.
Right.
Okay? What happened in 2016? They were kicked out again. That's my point. So history could repeat itself again. We, as lay individuals, we are the ones to stop that. Okay? Because I'm saying, you do not go on social media, with the exception of my cousin from Vieux-Fort North who seems to be plugging in his little pick-on every now and then. You don't see the politicians on social media attacking each other. You do not see the politicians on social media responding to any comment. But the vitriol that exists in social media, as soon as I post something by virtue of Michael Flood supports UWP, they will not say Michael Flood support the government. They will say Michael Flood is a UWP. They will cut my neck. And this is the thing that we need to stop in St. Lucia. Because we do not support the sitting government, whatever they do is wrong. If it is wrong, be man enough to call it to say it is wrong. When your organization, your party you follow, does something wrong, you should be man enough to say to the faces that you're wrong. And if the party you do not support does something good, you should be even stronger to say I support, because it is in the national interest.
Michael, quick comment before we move on to the next topic. Yes.
I was just going to say, Michael, I mean, my goodness, you've said a lot there. But here's one thing I would say. You asked about saying anything good thing. Can I be honest with you? You know, last week I met a Labour Party person. They said to me, boy, Ambrose, these days we're not sure about you, where you are. And they didn't say that. I said to them, I'm sure about my conscience. So when you make reference to not saying anything good about the government, I don't know if you're referring to me.
No,
because everything
general.
Yeah, I know in general. But here's what I say. You cannot blame people. You talk about projects that this government has done, which people are not celebrating. But I'm trying to think of some of those projects, because a lot of these projects are projects that has been carried over. So I'm trying to think the fresh projects that this government is responsible for. I mean, I make reference to the DSH thing. The DSH thing, as it stands, it's this government's baby. And in truth, there are things about it that is terrible. And the government is not willing to sit with the people and go through it and say, you know what, let us make some changes. Why? Because there is a possibility that they have already signed a contract that if they break that contract, it will cost the country a lot of money.
But do you ever see the opposition willing to agree?
That's my point.
To any aspect of it, any aspect of the project?
I have one proposition, because like Michael said, I agree.
And
people are frustrated with the 5 years of this, 5 years of this. I have a recommendation to any new party that wants to form the government. Make an official contract with the people. I think the people are frustrated. There's no question about that. Make a contract with the people. Sign it, or every candidate put their signature on it, and say that give me 10 years to rule, or not to rule rather, but to govern. Give me 10 years, and after 10 years, if I have not, and I'm talking about putting into place things like constitutional reform, making sure the things that has been promised before that has never come through for the people, that you give them a guarantee that, and you put a time frame on it, and if you do not stick to the time frame that you agree, and you do it contractually, you get a lawyer to sign it and say, you know what, we are going to all resign en masse and let us start fresh because we have failed. I think the people are ripe for this, and the people want this. I believe the people want this.
They will never see that.
That's going to be a challenge. Yeah.
Never.
All right, very spirited, and that will continue for the rest of the year and beyond until the next election in terms of those issues. And the DSH thing obviously is a lightning rod in terms of a development, and that's going to continue. And that's the sad thing too, is that we're not seeing, and I mentioned it last week as well, that there's a meeting of the minds on either side, and I'm not even sure if there are moderate people on either side to say, as moderate people, let's see how best we can discuss things, because it's opposition oppose and governments propose. With the same energy that the opposition oppose, the government will defend, right or wrong, they will defend their position. So people are holding on to their positions, and nobody's willing to move to the center in the national interest.
This is our reality, Calabash TV. This is the reality show. We welcome all viewpoints and perspectives. Keep it pointed, original, and constructive.
I'm afraid to bring up the other topic, which is St. Jude. We like we said last week, we're waiting until May 31st or the end of May to hear what the position is. But I think the Prime Minister did address it at his pre-cabinet meeting as well, talking about a couple of things. He spoke about the national insurance that he's been pushing, and also St. Jude. And I think he was hinting as well, from what I gathered, I may be wrong, that he was hinting that, listen, it's likely we'll have to work on a new hospital.
Yeah, I gathered that from his statement. But again, Bernard, I will go back to the statement I made on the last program, that unless the Prime Minister could furnish me with documented proof of what, or the analysis that was done on St. Jude's, I will hold to my opinion that St. Jude should be retrofitted and have the people move in there.
But should it be retrofitted for a temporary basis and you build a brand new hospital?
No, my point here is have the part of it retrofitted to first and foremost get the people out of the stadium.
Okay.
That's my number one concern.
But would you be willing to think of a new hospital? So St. Jude become like a temporary facility?
No, my point here is let us first get out of the stadium. Okay. Secondly, after you furnish me with evidence that St. Jude's as is cannot be used as the kind of hospital we're looking for the South, it's then and only then I will be able to accept and support the notion of a second venue. He did make mention of the possibility of a new hospital being built for in less than a year, or about 1 year, for about $100 million, vis-a-vis $120 million it may cost to do the necessary changes on the present St. Jude structure. My point here is, if we were to go with, let's say for argument's sake, he were to decide to go with the new structure somewhere else, what are we going to do with the $118 or something million that has been spent on the present St. Jude site? Demolish?
No, but I don't think that. Well, I don't. Are they still talking about demolition?
Well, that's the question I want to ask. What is it going to be used for?
So we need to know those things.
Right? We need to know. We need to know that. My point here is, no matter what you tell me, no matter what you plan on doing in 6 months, 8 months down the line, let us work on getting the people out of the George Odlum Stadium into some part of St. Jude's, and then we will take it. We'll take it to somewhere.
Ambrose, I'm not sure if you heard the Prime Minister's statement. Were you getting the impression that he was leaning towards a new facility?
As a matter of fact, I believe the Prime Minister has already concluded. I'm convinced of that. I listened to the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister didn't say anything that gave any indication that there is a possibility that they will continue and finish the hospital within whatever time period that it's supposed to be finished. And last week I made the statement about the hospital, the hospital being made ready to remove persons from St. Jude for a cost of between 50 and 5 million. I actually heard it, and I mean the Prime Minister actually said that John Peters was crazy, effectively by just coming up with his figures as far as it's concerned from the air. But John Peters did make the statement that from what he saw, and he's a qualified engineer, that the hospital could be retrofitted, as Michael was saying, retrofitted, and a wing, I think it was a wing, be ready within 6 months, and he saw a costing of as low as 50,000 and as high as 5 million. Now I know they were saying,
tell me, isn't that craziness?
I know. Hold on. But yes, I'm not an engineer. I mean, I don't know. Maybe 50,000 could be a cowboy job, but 5 million might be a better quality job. But here's what actually worries me. I listened to Guy Joseph. Guy Joseph says, I think there were 6. He mentions 6 professionals who has given an opinion. Who are these professionals? To this day, the public haven't been told who these professionals are. The only professional that I know that has been involved with this St. Jude is the man that did the forensic audit, which is questionable because that man is too close to Guy Joseph, as far as I'm concerned. So the question is, and I'm saying it correctly, I believe all the government is doing is just biding time. That's all they're doing. They have made a decision already. They are going to remove St. Jude from where it is and put it across the road, as they say. I believe so. But they know St. Lucians. We're very forgetful people. Give them 3 weeks and there'll be no hoo-ha anymore. We would have forgotten all the anger that we had And so in 3 weeks' time, they will come and give us the great announcement that St. Jude will not be completed. I am
Can I ask
convinced
a
of that.
question here? But you see, again, selective. Who is Sylvanus Fontenay? Who made him chief engineer in the Ministry of Communication, Works and Transport? Served in that ministry for a number of years as chief engineer. But today, he's no longer in the ministry, he's in private practice, and because it is perceived that he is close to Guy Joseph, he is not qualified to do something. Let me finish. He's not qualified to do something he did with government as government's chief engineer under the same administration. I don't want to call him out. This again, it shows our level of tolerance when it comes to people who do not support us in this country, and I think we need to stop that. All right.
Hold on, Michael. I
subscribe to the notion that unless you do not give me concrete evidence, show me proof of what they did, I will hold to my thing. But let us not call out the man because he is a professional.
Yeah, we don't want to question. We don't want to question somebody's competence.
No. I'm not talking.
But we need to, like Michael said, we need to see the report. So, but now we're not engineers. So even if we see the report, we'll be able to.
But here's the thing, Michael. But I'm sorry. I am not questioning the man. I'm simply saying that I have just seen the gentleman, because I've seen a lot of news footage with the gentleman. When Guy Joseph went to collect the bits and pieces, he was the gentleman standing right there in the news media. It's not me. I mean, I don't know the gentleman personally. You understand? I'm just saying it just does not give a good impression. If he's a professional, then he needs to keep his distance. We should judge him
more on his work and who is
right. So here's the thing. John Peters said that the forensic audit that was done by this gentleman, John Peters is also professional. He said he went to the hospital, did the walkabout, and he saw that there were many discrepancies in it. It's not me. These are not my words. So this is from an engineer.
So it's good to have the engineers themselves.
Just to close it, John Peters went there, he did a walkabout. Okay? But there were professionals for weeks that measured, tested. Now I'm saying I am still waiting on that report.
Yes.
But there are professionals who went in there with the pull tip here, knock walls, they did the testing. We're willing to kick that aside, okay, and to accept what John Peters said he saw just by walking.
No. John Peters didn't say he saw by walking. He didn't just walk about.
He didn't do as much as the engineers did.
Ambrose, the point here is, John Peters, whom I know well, is my good friend. I respect him. All right, he did a walkthrough. Okay, we're willing to accept what he says.
No, but he could have had additional information.
He
could have had additional information. He could have been based.
Exactly.
No, I'm not. So the walkthrough was just visually, but I'm just.
I'm not kicking out all John Peters said. Okay, I'm not doing that. I'm just saying how we behave in St. Lucia. John Peters said it. It's factual. Gospel, the other side says it. No, we need
so we need to look at both sides, because John Peters, the walkabout, could have been the culmination of a lot of other research. And if I know him well, he does a lot of research. So he will be extremely well researched on this topic and so on. So, but I agree, in terms of us, the public, we need to be able to have access to see and read for ourselves, to be able to form our own judgments, because you'll hear many sides to a story, but until you see it yourself. And so again, like everything else, that's a debate that's going to go on. But I wanted to ask you, Ambrose, in terms of, like I said, we were hinting, I think the Prime Minister was hinting towards a new facility. And I think we were discussing that. Now, that discussion, that thought, we will have it after the report comes out in terms of whether it's new or old. But would there be a lot of, as far as you know, disagreement if there's a decision to go to a new facility?
I am convinced. As a matter of fact, I don't know, I think the Prime Minister must be one of the bravest men in this country, because for me, this hospital could be his demise. I mean, apart from the fact that persons are disappointed in him in many ways, but this hospital situation and what he's doing, and again, I'm one of those, and it's a stickler, the connection to the hospital and DSH, I know I cannot get it out of my head. Okay. It just keeps swirling around my head.
Yeah, but let's stick to the new hospital for the time being. So, for example, you mentioned a while ago that solutions forget things in a few days.
Yes.
If a new hospital is built, do you think that issue is going to go away?
I believe if a new hospital is built and there is proper balance reasoning as to why this new hospital should have been built, I think people might be angry to begin with, but eventually they may actually accept it, because that is the situation that they're in. But the reality is, however, nothing seems to support the idea for a new hospital. So I think the Prime Minister will always have that problem. Well, not just the Prime Minister, but Mary Isaac and Guy Joseph.
Let me ask you, Michael.
Just something quickly, Bernard.
Yeah.
I'm sure you could recall over the last few weeks we heard on national television that the government had already taken the decision to privatize the OKU hospital. But I'm sure just a couple of days ago you heard from the Prime Minister the decision is to go with the very same decision taken by the former administration, okay, to form a statutory corporation to manage OKU. But it was blasted over the...
No, but it could be pressure that forces change as well.
We don't know. No. My point is, what was said, that they believe the government had already signed off with that, group that was said to be here in St. Lucia about 2 weeks ago asking people questions. So much so they said the people who were at the hospital asking people questions because the government because the government had taken a decision to privatize. But yet we're hearing now that the government is going with the same decision that the previous administration took. Again, we need to, before we have concrete evidence of something, we need to stop that allegation thing, believing it and calling people names. We need to stop that. Because it may very well be true. At the end of the day, if the government present the report or the analysis of St. Jude's, present it and it is taken by the opposition and they look at it, the engineers look at it, they may very well agree that in as much as the hospital could be retrofitted, but because of X, Y, and Z, it would be more in our interest to go with a new hospital at a new location and to do something else with St. Jude's. I'm saying until then, let us not say the government has taken a decision to build a new hospital at a new location. Let us wait and let us press the government to furnish us with the relevant information.
Quickly, yeah. Sorry, I was just going to say, Michael said about the statutory board. If I understood very well, he said, the Prime Minister said that it is the statutory board from the old administration. But if I understand very well, I read a piece coming from Dr. Anthony, and he said the two differ. Most certainly he said the two differ. The Prime Minister is using the word statutory, but actually from listening to Dr. Anthony, the understanding was that the two differ because he's more familiar with what is going on there. And also I was going to say, Michael, there's also no confirmation that the hospital has not yet been privatized. I mean, that doesn't mean because the Prime Minister has not said that these investors have come in. All the conversation before that investors were being looked at. So there is no proof that he has not said definitively that there is no privatization.
No, but I'm saying he hasn't said it. And so on. That'll have to be a process. Yeah,
that's my point. It's the rumors we believe too much. And again, you know why? Because it is coming from the side we support against the side we don't support.
Now the rumor is you get the rumor when there's lack of information, and so people are asking for information to present deal with some of these issues. And I agree. Very quickly, Ambrose, wanted to ask you. I'm still on the new hospital thing, because I was just trying to get a sense. Because I know probably that's one of the likely issues that will come about in terms of the. And we were discussing the recently. Somebody was saying about. St. Jude obviously has issues as a location, as a facility, and it's limited because it was built quite a while back during the war years and so on. So it has obvious limitations. So do you want that to become a new hospital, and then our grandchildren will have to think of another hospital pretty soon, because St. Jude will suddenly become, again, the same issues that it has, the size of the rooms, the height of the rooms, the ceilings and so on. And that's why I was asking about whether St. Lucians would accept a new hospital now as opposed to one in 10, 15 years' time.
Well, in truth, like I said, I think if the government can present, like you said, speculation causes problems. Yeah. If the government can present information, for example, I heard last night on one of the shows about Canadians who were involved in the actual process. They were Canadians.
But that's speculation as well.
But again, but here's the thing, and I'm saying if this is not true, then my goodness, that person is terrible. Yeah. But if that is the case, then it means that it was not just the hospital building was not just something that was just happening. It was just happening vitae. There must have been some kind of process in place, and so the reality is the government still has not to this day presented any information that really says why the hospital needs to be moved and why it is not to international standard. They keep bandying the word international standard, but they cannot say what the international standard is that the hospital does not meet. To this day,
but St. Jude as it is certainly not a modern hospital.
Well, yes, we know that.
And it wouldn't be a modern hospital even if you put stuff in there.
But there are lots of
a modern
repeats.
hospital would require a different kind of infrastructural setup. Let me give you an example. If I have a car that's not working, I mean, I can do a complete total overhaul on it, but shouldn't I start thinking of a new car?
It remains a 1998 car.
So that's a discussion we'll have.
But you've never seen some of the models. You've never seen the guys, you know.
But something else we need to look at. And I keep hearing about the location of St. Jude's because it finds itself within the DSH project. All around the St. Jude's Hospital is housing area.
And industry.
Mm-hmm. We have a school not too far. Not just one, two schools. Mm-hmm. The OJ school and the school down in Larishos. Okay, are you telling me all these businesses, schools and other private entities will have to be relocated? We have WLBL right there. Okay, just a stone throw away from St. Jude's. So the notion that we believe it is because it finds itself within the zone of DSH. Okay, a mile to the back of St. Jude's Hospital, to the back, which will take you into where the DSH project will take place, is a housing area. So that means you'll have to move the entire thing. As chairman of housing, I started a housing project about 600 to 700 yards to the back of St. Jude's, which will take you into the DSH project site.
One major difference.
But the thing is, nobody speaks of that.
Well, I was going to say, Michael, one major difference. It's not just a matter of a housing project. A hospital is a place for what? It is where sick people go to. You don't go to a hospital. I have not been to a hospital in a long time. Thank you, Lord. Okay? The only reason why I would go to a hospital is if I am ill. Equine Zone does not make any accommodation for illness. That is why farmers are not allowed in the area, and that's a fact. I mean, we can actually do within the equine zone. You cannot do farming within the equine zone, and that's not a national standard. It's not a St. Lucia standard. That's an international standard.
So what was taking place there?
Pardon?
What was taking place there before? Are you telling me that all the farmers that are in the area, they will ask them to cease operation?
It's not me, Michael. I don't set the rules for an equine zone. An equine zone is set up. Is actually a zone that is actually it's stipulated by international standards. So I don't create the equine zone. The point is, a hospital is a place that accommodates disease, and such a place cannot be accommodated within the equine zone.
Yes, agreed. Present location to the new location that has been mentioned near WLBL. What is the difference?
I don't know the distance. But there's a distance from the horse trap. I think it's like 3 miles, I think.
No, then you know the new the present St. Jude. You know where it's located.
Well,
this is just about 200 to 300 yards
from where?
From WLBL.
Oh no, I'm saying, but where in terms of where the horse racing track is going to be?
I mean,
it's a bit of a
horse racing track has
distance
started in the Greece entrance area. All close to the George Adolph Stadium.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So that's all the way down there. So I think there's a 3 mile. There's a 3 mile.
But that's my point.
There's a 3 mile zone. So I don't think the St. Jude's I think falls
as a matter
within
of fact,
presently.
As a matter of fact, WLBL finds itself much closer to the racetrack than the
no, but WLBL may not affect it. That's what I'm saying, because it doesn't mean I used to go to a horse racing track.
It's not WLBL. It's the location for the new hospital people are talking about.
Oh no, but we're talking about the equine zone in terms of the hospital. I used to go to a racetrack in Newmarket.
No, but exactly.
But Michael is saying that the new hospital
location within that same equine zone you're talking about, because it is somewhere near WLBL, which is closer to the racetrack than the present St. Jude's.
Okay, so that discussion is going to continue for quite again, in the absence of information, we need to have a lot of information on this to be able to make to have some informed discussion on it, and also to make some informed decisions on it. The time has flown very quickly, gentlemen. I really appreciate again your involvement in this discussion as we move into another week in St. Lucia, and to get closer actually to the Prime Minister and the government's announcement on St. Jude and other things. So we'll await to see how that works out, but I suppose the debate and the discussion will continue until the time. So again, I want to thank you for giving us the time and for a very spirited debate, and I'm sure we'll have a similar one next week. Thanks a lot, Michael, and thanks a lot to Ambrose.
Thank you
for participating in this.
This is happening. This is our reality. This is Calabash TV.